Welcome, everybody. This is actually a super popular roundtable. Of course it is. Dr. Justin Feinstein from the Float Research Collective. The launch was just on the 26th. Today is the 29th, and we're here to talk about the post-launch of the Float Research Collective. My name is Jonathan Rogue. Welcome, everyone, to the FTA Public Roundtable post-launch of the Float Research Collective. Dr. Justin Feinstein, he was just mentioning some amazing things about the fundraiser, but if anybody didn't get a chance to, his presentation from Float Conference 2022 is live on YouTube, and it's been posted on the Float Collective. So there's a lot of information in that presentation that can educate you on this process. If you haven't seen it already, you can go to clinicalfloat.fundraise.org to sign up for a fundraiser. We really need you to sign up because that's really what's going to help push this super ambitious concept idea, and it's going to change everything. And then if you guys do get a chance to see it, if you're having trouble signing up, there's also a video. So thank you, everybody, for being patient with me. Justin, you could take it away if you want to finish your thoughts, and anybody else has questions, feel free to jump in as needed.
Hey, Justin, I have a question for you. Can I kick it off?
Sure.
I just realized that I signed up all of my corporate-owned locations and my media team, but I personally didn't get anything because I didn't put my own email down. Do I have to sign up through you to get the launch packet, or can I go find it somewhere?
So it's a good question. Right now, I could easily add your name to the email list, and I could forward you the launch pack email.
Okay.
There's not a simple way to just go and find it.
Okay.
But yeah, that would probably be the easiest.
Okay, if you could do that, that'd be awesome.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, Justin, you said email you directly, or if we've signed up, the packet will come out?
When did you sign up?
About
4 minutes ago.
About 4 minutes ago.
Okay, I'll get it to you right after this meeting.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
We're still learning the whole process. This is a new site for us, fundraise.org. It's a great site, though. There's ways they automate some of the emails, and I'm working on that right now. I'm going back and forth with their customer service. So as soon as you sign up, the email automatically just comes to you. That will be the simplest way. But right now it's manual.
Are you getting much feedback from people on the process, or?
You know, one thing I should say is Jonathan put together a really incredible 3-minute video. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything better than this. It shows you how to create a team, how to sort of make sure you change the name of your team to your actual business name or whatever you want to call it, and other details about, you know, how to change the URL address if you want it to be more personalized, and other things like that. So the feedback I've gotten is, if you watch Jonathan's video, it's very straightforward. There's obviously some quirks if you don't, just because of the way the process works, but it only takes about 5 minutes. That's what most people have told me, is if you, and maybe you guys could speak to it because you just signed up 4 minutes ago. How long did it take you to actually sign up?
I can attest to that. It took me longer to figure out a picture to upload than it took me to actually sign up for it. So it was super quick. Yeah.
That's great. And you know, one thing I want to emphasize on this call, and I think it's important for people to recognize this, is you don't have to commit anything. We're not asking for your credit card information. We're not asking you to achieve whatever your fundraising goal is. What we're asking more than anything is for your outreach, to reach out to your community of floaters, to people who are benefiting from this therapy, and see if they're interested in contributing to this mission. You know, right now, all float centers around the world, I just got off the phone with Australia, are definitely going through difficult times. I think all businesses are going through difficult times right now. There's a recession on the horizon. You know, now's not the time to feel like you have to come out of your own coffers for this. Really, what we're asking you to do is just sign up and start the outreach process. Because right now, we're kind of a niche in all of our communities. We're kind of, oh, that's the float therapy place, and they do float therapy, but no one's really heard of us in the mainstream. We're just beginning to sort of get that mainstream attention. And the idea behind this team-based fundraiser is to sort of unite all these little niche communities around the world into one united float community, and to get out this message that this is a really effective therapy. Right now, people don't view us as a real medical treatment, certainly not in the medical field. And that's going to be something that we will change with the Float Research Collective. If my goal is met here in the next 5, 10, 15 years, all of a sudden doctors are going to be taking us seriously. Other types of healthcare providers are going to start taking us seriously. And it's going to be mainstream. I really believe that, in a way that people who normally couldn't access this treatment will now be able to access it. This is a real big goal of mine, to make floating more accessible. Right now we're helping people, but the people that we're helping tend to be on the wealthier side of things. And with all wellness techniques, you see that. But when you get into the realm of medical modalities, the people who are really struggling, you take your average person with chronic pain, or your average person with severe anxiety, they're not going to be able to afford this. That's the truth. But if they had it covered, if it was completely subsidized, say by insurance or nationalized healthcare systems, they would float every day. I kid you not, they would float every day, because they're the ones who stand to benefit the most. And I think this is something that float centers are starting to recognize. I'd be very curious, to have a little discussion on this call, but if you take a look at your average member, somebody who's paying to float, say, every week or every month at your facility, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of those members are doing it because they're benefiting from it in some way, shape, or form. In other words, they have some sort of health condition that is getting better because of their float practice. And so that to me is an important part of the collective. I'd like to actually create a way that we could capture data from all of your centers. And one of the first things I talk about in my presentation is I want to look at what are the members, what kind of health conditions are they dealing with, and what kind of health conditions are they finding floating is benefiting. We just don't know this yet. I think maybe each of you internally might have a sense, just based off of your own members, maybe conversations you've had with them. But it would be really cool to say, get 10,000 people around the world who are paying to float on a regular basis, and figure out why. What are the reasons? And that could help us too from a research standpoint. What are the areas that we should be studying? What are the conditions that seem to be a hot topic in terms of memberships? So anyways, that's just a short way of saying I hope all of you sign up for the team-based fundraiser, because in order to get this message out, it's going to take all of us. I don't think any of us have such a powerful presence online that we're going to have 1 million followers right away. But if we come together as a community, we might be able to get 1 million followers through the collective outreach of all of us.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to take. I think we really need to get this message out there to the mainstream.
Absolutely. But hold questions just for 1 second. I do have to start the stream because this is an FTA roundtable and we do record it. Hold the question for 1 second. I'm just going to announce the stream so that when we get the recording, we have something to launch off of. Okay.
Hey, just so you know, buddy, your audio is like orders of magnitude lower than everyone else, Jonathan.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, like it's like a whisper.
I don't know why.
Is my audio okay?
Yeah, you're
No,
perfect.
you're fine.
You're good, Justin. I'm not really sure why mine is having a problem.
At least it is for us. Is everyone else hearing the same? Okay.
Yeah, it's low.
Sorry, everyone, since we're pausing for a minute, do we know anything about Tampa floats? Has anybody heard? Have you?
No.
I'm really worried about them, and St. Pete Saltworks.
Yeah, I just started seeing the pictures this morning. It looked really devastating.
Mark from St. Pete is on the call, so
Oh, I didn't see that.
Hey guys, yeah, this is Mark at St. Pete Saltworks. So yeah, St. Pete Saltworks and I know Tampa Floats. Yeah, we're north of. It was supposed to be coming at us, but yeah, it ended up going way south of us. So yeah, we're feeling for their friends to the south, but yeah, we're high and dry here, and we're good for now. But thanks for asking.
Great to know.
That's a relief. Yeah, I couldn't believe the pictures I was seeing.
Jonathan, we can't hear you at all.
You've gone to from quiet to total zen, man.
Yeah.
Again, sorry I hopped on late. I've got a question about how we may have talked about this, but just the logistics of trying to collect funding. I spoke with Float Helm while we were at the conference, and their suggestion was to collect everything on Helm and then do a donation from our float studio. Is that what everybody else is thinking? Was that discussed earlier?
Oh, I
No,
thought straight to
just
the
you.
donation page. Yeah.
So right now, I would love to have Helm involved, honestly, because I think that would be a great way of collecting donations. Like if, for example, a floater could round up, or after their float, give an automatic donation to the collective. Those are ways that over time could really be a great revenue source for fundraising. As far as I know, we haven't done that yet. I have to talk to Graham and Ashkan about it. I'm trying to set up a call with those guys. Right now, the way all donations are coming in is through our fundraise platform. And maybe Jonathan could put some links out in the chat window, but it's a pretty easy platform. You could automatically set up recurring donations if you wanted to say donate every month or every year. That's super easy to do. It accepts all credit cards. We're trying to work to get it to accept bank account transfers. Right now it has PayPal and any credit card. And then, for bigger donations, the recommendation is to actually give a physical check. And on the fundraise site, there's an address that you can mail that. That's mainly because you'll have less processing fees. Every credit card company, even for nonprofits, charges a small processing fee.
Okay. Y'all can hear me now.
Yes.
Okay. I'm so sorry about that.
One thing I think we should all do is give Jonathan a round of applause, because this guy has put in so much. That video of my presentation was a byproduct of Jonathan's excellent video editing skills. He has so many different skill sets. I think the FTA is super lucky and fortunate to have somebody like Jonathan taking the lead on these things. And I just personally want to say, Jonathan, thank you for everything you've done for the Float Research Collective and helping us get the message out.
It's my pleasure. That's why I'm here. I'm trying to help. I'm giving my time. That's really what it's all about. I don't have anything to sell. I'm just here to help. So thank you for those kind words.
Hey,
I'll never forget the inspirational thing we had at Float Conference too, Justin. That inspired me like on another level. The little huddle.
Hey, mutual. The feeling is mutual.
Go ahead, Mark. Sorry about that.
No, that's good. That's good. I had two quick questions. One, I guess, directly about the fundraiser. Is there an end date to this, or are we open?
Right now it's open. We're going to make a strong push through this next month. So like the month, we're calling it Floatober. We'll make the announcement soon, but we're trying to create a Floatober fundraising initiative where all the people who've signed up to be a team. And by the way, I think we're almost up to 50 teams. We might be at 50 teams right now, which is incredible. We started, of course, from zero just a few weeks ago. So, the team-based campaign will probably have a big push for this month of October, or Floatober, I should say. It will sort of calm down a little bit. We're going to have another push at the end of the year when we get towards Giving Tuesday and people are able to figure out what kind of money they're able to contribute. And speaking of which, I hope everyone knows this, but maybe not everybody. We're a 501c3 now. We're officially a nonprofit, which means all donations are tax deductible. And so typically for 501c3s, you get a lot of your donations in the very last month of the year. And that's because people are trying to figure out how much they could deduct from their taxes, and then they'll donate that. So the big push is going to be this next month. We'll have another push towards the end of the year, and then we'll see where we're at. We don't know how successful this is going to be. It's our first time trying to fundraise, and you know, depending on how that goes, we'll probably have a few different pushes again next year. But the ultimate goal is what I talk about in my presentation, is we're trying to get to $10 million. I think at that level, we can make a true impact on the medical system. And if we get to the $1 million mark, I think that's still a great start. The fundraising campaign really has three different goals: 1 million, 5 million, and 10 million. And each one of them sort of has a target. And on the fundraising website and in my presentation, we talk about that a lot. But we'll see that, you know, it may take in
Hey,
this,
Cindy.
it may take in this
Okay, hold on
economic
just a minute. I
climate.
need to.
You're good.
Sorry, it may take a couple years, is my own suspicion. You never know. You know, I'm trying to court some wealthy philanthropists. I think there's a lot of people who are sick of the scourge of drug addiction in our society. I think there's a lot of potentially wealthy people here on Maui, where I live, that are very interested in this. And you never know when you have that one, you know, philanthropic donor that says, you know what, I'm going to get you to the finish line.
Yeah.
And that's part of what this team-based fundraiser is all about. Is I don't think it should necessarily be the burden of the whole float industry to fund the FRC. I think what would be really neat is if we could get it rolling, right? Maybe we reach that $1 million mark, but through our outreach, through our networks, we're able to connect the dots and get a wealthy philanthropist to actually jump on board and help get us to the finish line. So we'll see. It is going to be a multi-year effort for sure. We'll reevaluate at the end of this year. We're trying to make a really big push for the rest of this year.
Cool.
Jason, you have some questions in the chat, and I guess the most recent one is about approaching any high-profile athletes. And I think, kind of to your point, we would love to get in touch with anyone and everyone who can have that kind of influence. Right. And as far as messaging is concerned, that's what people would take from the launch packet, take your verbiage, take those videos, and then use that to to get in front of their own network.
I mean, this is a great point. I think in our launch pack, one of the slides actually takes a direct quote from an article that came out about a month ago from Ohio State University. Mm-hmm. And it was their director of sports science, the entire director of the sports science program at Ohio State, which is kind of one of the top athletic universities, basically saying that floating is the most advanced tool they have to help student athletes. Period. He didn't say it's amongst or it's good. He's saying it's the most advanced tool they have to help student athletes. So, and apparently they have like a dozen or so tanks at Ohio State. So it's not just the football program anymore that's using it.
Right.
So there may be ways that we could try to use those connections. I know people, for example, who've set up the float tanks at some of the athletes' homes. You have people of the echelon like Tom Brady or Steph Curry, amongst many others. All it would take is one of them to really try to help promote us and get this message out. And that could be huge for the FRC.
Absolutely. We locally here in Tucson, Arizona we've had a few local University of Arizona athletes in our tank from some Olympic athletes that were in Tokyo last year that did well. and some strength coaches that have expressed a lot of interest. It's chasing down all the red tape and cutting through it to create relationships with the colleges, especially now with the NCAA changing ruling on compensation and so on. So from a college level, there's a little more red tape. The professional level, as you mentioned, it's very clean. And if there's one angel donor, so to say, that's willing to work with us collaboratively, excuse me, I think it would go a very long way.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a great suggestion. And there's so much outreach the sports side of the equation has.
Hey guys, being down here in Tampa, I'm working on the Tom Brady angle. I've got some connections on some connections that work in the same office as him and his supplement company. So I'm barking up that tree. I will continue to do that.
Mark, you would be a hero to us all. You know, I was
Yeah, I'd love
shocked that the TB12 book came out a year or two ago, where it talks all about his regimen of health. And he didn't include floating in the TB12. And I said, this isn't right. And then I talked to a few people and they claim that he wants to keep floating his little secret. That's what they
Really?
said.
Okay.
I was
We're gonna
disappointed
get
he
that
didn't
secret
promote
out.
it.
Yeah. I got a lot of ties in St. Pete and Tampa area. So yeah, I'm gonna make that my mission.
That'd be incredible.
There is one thing I wanted to mention. With Mark mentioning what he just mentioned, we could all be heroes. And this is something that when we were at Float Conference 2022, it was myself, Justin, Elliot Reed, and Eric Anderson, and we were huddled in a circle. And, maybe it was just the long night, having a good time. We were getting together. And then all of a sudden, words of inspiration just started to come out. Here's the premise of what we are doing here. Imagine everyone, when you start a fundraising page, you might think, well, what's reasonable? Maybe we could raise 1,000. That would make sense for my float center. I would probably put that too. However, when you really think about this, imagine all of the people, just like Mark mentioned, that we interact with on a daily basis, whether it be in our private lives and our business lives. There have to be, and I know it to be true, wealthy people that come through your businesses, wealthy philanthropists, people who make it a philanthropic goal to contribute. So when we're making these fundraising pages, I was like, well, when I first signed up, I put $100,000 and Justin was like, wow, thank you. And I didn't even raise the money yet, but see, he understands. And I think that that's what I got out of his presentation too, was really shoot for the stars here, because, the mission is we need to find those like the influencers and the wealthy folks. Like Mandy, I think you mentioned that you had somebody who was very wealthy that might help to contribute in a previous committee call. So like, this is the mission. And if we can all kind of band together, one of us might be a hero, but we'll all be heroes for having done it together. And it will change what float therapy is for the average person that really can't afford to go every single week that really they should. But that I think is one of the missions that we're trying to really propel with the FRC.
Yeah, and I remember somebody told me a story of Bill Gates showing up randomly to float at a local float center. And
yes, that was on the Float Collective. It was a post.
So this is actually happened. And you could imagine, there's a lot of other people who probably are curious, very wealthy, and coming to your float centers. You might not even know it, but if you have signage, if you have brochures, if you're talking to them about it, all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I would like to contribute. I would like to maybe help this cause. This seems like it could help society. And a lot of philanthropists, when you get down to it, that's really what they're after. They have a lot of money, more than they need, and they're trying to help society in some meaningful way. And when they come out of a float, trust me, even the Bill Gates of the world are feeling it in a way that they haven't probably felt before. Their nervous system is in this sort of peaceful state. Their mind isn't going a million miles an hour, maybe for the first time their entire life. And they come out of a float and there, all of a sudden, there's the FRC fundraising campaign. Help bring this to the masses, help bring this to the average people. and now we could get our fundraising goals met. So I think that's part of what Jonathan's touching at, which is the goals that you set on your fundraising page, we're not holding you to it. There's an option on that site that, you know, we could collect everybody's credit card, and if you don't get to your goal, we charge it. I said, hell no, we're not doing that right now, especially in this economic climate. So there's really nothing holding you back from putting in a big fundraiser. And if you had, say, a wealthy philanthropist walk through your doors and see your campaign and say, oh, I want to get these guys to the finish line, and guess what? They might do it. So, you know, to me, I feel like this notion of shoot for the stars is really the theme of the whole collective. You know, we could have started small. We could have started at some very minor question, but, you know, I said to myself, there's only so many years to live in life. And I want to be alive when floating has gone mainstream. I want to see it get to that point where a person comes into their doctor and says, you know, doctor, I'm struggling. I can't sleep at night. My mind's racing all the time. I need something to take off the edge. My pain is uncontrollable. And the first thing that doctor does before they reach for their pill pad is they write them a prescription to go float. That's what I want to see. That's the end game here. The end game is this becomes just part of life, that people, when they're stressed out, when they're anxious, they float. And eventually this could become part of just a societal ritual where everybody in the world is maybe floating once a week or once a month as part of their just their daily routine, their healthcare maintenance. And I talk about this as well. You know, when you think about floating and what it does in terms of helping the nervous system, reducing levels of stress, it's not just for people who already have ailments. This is a preventative tool. This is something that could help stop ailments from forming. So you don't go on to have a full-blown anxiety disorder. So you don't go on to have PTSD. So you don't go on to have chronic pain. Imagine that if this was a preventative tool that could sort of stop all of these very chronic ailments in their tracks. And so to me, that's what we're aiming for here with the collective. It's not just to do another research study, it's to do the type of research studies that would shake the medical system. And that's really what we're doing.
And
So
who
I was-
doesn't want to shake
ahead.
the medical system, really? Go ahead, Vivi, sorry.
So I was just thinking a heavy hitter as equally powerful as good old pharma and their lobby. How about, and not necessarily Hollywood, because there's New York and there's a lot of others, but how about that route? Just, you know, once you get something into a media format and people start seeing it as a regular thing, because a lot of people don't even know, they don't have that picture in their head of what float therapy is. But if it was in movies in a favorable form, not in the past couple of pictures that freaked everyone out, but if it was in a favorable format. So I don't know exactly the terminology, but I know that if someone wants to put the newest Audi in a commercial, that Audi is making money. And I don't know what component of publicity that is, but every single item that you bring onto a set when you're doing a movie, a show, whatever, that item is like its own entity. Like, so there is at least, you know, recognition to be made. I don't know the route. I could ask, I have a nephew in publicity. I could ask him, but,
yeah,
you know,
I like that idea of, and Jocelyn wrote in the chat window, product placement. I guess that's what.
Thank you. That's it. Yeah, because once you do that, you have so many people seeing it at one time, and to take on, and believe me, we've had conversations. Pharma, they're a beast. They're a beast with endless pockets. So they come in with all sorts of goodies to lots of doctors' offices, and that's going to be a big challenge down the road because their lobby is really tight in Washington.
That's right. And by the way, everyone on this call, if anything happens to me bad in the next couple of years, you're going to know that something nefarious occurred because of what we're trying to do against Big Pharma. I'm putting it out there because I've not just had warnings. I'm not a paranoid person, but I've been told by many people what we are trying to do could really shake the system up. And they're going to be upset when their top 3 conditions of pain, stress, and anxiety that they like to medicate away no longer need medication. That's going to cause problems for big pharma. But the
There's
truth
a-
is,
yeah.
those guys deserve everything and more because of what they've done to our society. So many people addicted to these drugs, unnecessarily speaking. And I'm not saying all drugs are bad. For sure, there's certain types of patients that 100% need these, especially inpatients in hospital settings with very difficult types of pain to treat, like cancer pain. But the vast majority of people could benefit from floating and not have to get addicted to these drugs. I believe that fully. And so I don't want to necessarily say that all of big pharma is horrible, but the types that deal things like benzos and opioids, I mean, these are the Pablo Escobars of big pharma. It's really a sad situation. I talk about it in my presentation. Millions and millions of people are physiologically addicted to it. I have family members who cannot come off of their prescription medication without having the worst withdrawal symptoms of their life. So they're now stuck on it for life.
Well, look at also, you just mentioned something. So look at all the TV commercials. You can't go through an hour of television without seeing at least 5 pharma commercials. And so
with a million
there's your-
side effects in the background.
Right, exactly. If you lose your leg, your eye, so that's that whole product placement. So what if that part of it was more of a mainstream, let's make that part cool. So you're totally, because they have endless pockets, and that's where,
That's right.
you're contending with it.
And just to give some numbers to that, I looked at this the other day. Over $150 million has already been spent this year by big pharma's lobby. Just for the lobby. I'm not even talking about the clinical trials, which cost hundreds of millions. Just their lobby was 150 million. So that shows you what we're up against. We're an order of magnitude lower in what we're trying to achieve in our fundraiser. And these guys just have such deep pockets.
But if I could just say one more thing, and I'm sorry to kind of bombard this, but it's also, take health into your own hands again. And that's even like the bigger entity of it, because a lot of people are like, well, this is the pill I take. This is what my doctor said. This is what's that. And they're not aware of all the facets of, taking health into your own hand with flow therapy as a modality, with eating healthy, with walking every day. And I mean, we're in a country, besides the drug epidemic, obesity and comorbidities we're a very unhealthy country at our highest level. So you have that as a secondary or as a primary goal alongside with it.
Absolutely. And for those who don't know, Vivian and her husband run a doctor's office where her husband is a general practitioner, and you also have a float clinic right there in office. I mean, think about how neat that would be when you go into your doctor. And by the way, this got announced last week. This is really big news. They're now asking every general practitioner in America to screen for anxiety. This came out last week. It was in all the popular press. That means you're going to have millions and millions of people who come to their doctor. They're going to get screened for anxiety. And guess what? Now they're probably going to have an anxiety disorder. And what we really need to be doing is saying, here's a float tank downstairs, get into it right now, right? What I'm worried about is the prescription pad's going to come out. And so we're going to fight this. This is part of what the FRC is all about, is we're going to fight this tooth and nail. If you're going to be screening every person in this country for anxiety, the first thing the doctor should be saying when they get a positive screen is go float. That should be what they're prescribing.
So this is the last thing I'm saying, I promise, but I just made up a healthy prescription pad that I'm trying to give out, not with floating, but with movement and with, watching what you're eating and with all sorts of what they call lifestyle medicine. So
That's right.
it's pretty ugly right now. I'll try to get it nice looking, but if that works, that might be a good thing to get it into every office, like prescribed floating.
That's right.
This is kind of a side note, but I really, because Vivi, you come from a unique perspective as a doctor, and like how could somebody that has a float center, I mean, up until we get this funded, like how could we approach a doctor? Is that something we could do? Like, maybe offer doctors floats? I know that that's been a topic of discussion, but in the interim to that, we'd like to see like maybe get doctors on board and just offer like, say, well, it's not covered by insurance, but you could go try this service. Do you have any insight into that?
So it's my husband that's a doctor. If he ever heard you say that, he would kill me because he's like, stop doctoring. But it's not me. But so you could, like the yoga, the meditation, but I'm going to be flat out honest. Doctors that my husband are friends with are skeptical. So I have a challenging time. I've gotten them in for free floats and just talking and sending information through networking. It's tough. It's tough. What I've done more is with other ancillaries, with psychologists, psychiatrists, physical therapy. What I've tried to do is I've tried to say, okay, look, it's like the cost of a copay. What is your copay? And if you're paying whatever, a high-end copay to go to physical therapy, what if we somehow manage that kind of system to change the algorithm and you come to us even for like a half hour, and I would even make it even like less. So it's challenging. I'd have to really sit down and think about it. There are some successes. I beat my head a lot against the wall because of all the issues that you've talked about. But a lot of the pain doctors that what I've talked to, they are under watch from the state for how many narcotics and whatnot they prescribe. So their hands are tied with someone comes in, they're in pain. They're like, what do I do? So that's an angle to take because they
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. So for those who don't know, the opioid crisis is so bad that they're now coming down on doctors. There's been a few doctors who've been in lawsuits now. They're worried about overprescribing. And so it's a lot more regulated now. This is a perfect time to go approach your doctors, if it's your doctor or just somebody who's local, and offer them a free float and have them come in and tell them that you would love to have a trial, for example, where they could send a couple of their patients to float and you will let them float for free. And the patients could give them feedback. The patients could say, doctor, there's really something here. It's helping my back pain, or there's really something here. I'm not as stressed and anxious as I used to be. And then the doctor gets that feedback, and guess what? They're going to start sending more people, and then they'll be paying clients and so forth.
Right. And they also show that they can show a decrease, because we did that with a couple informal studies, just with like people upstairs, and then we documented it, and they can show that if they are on medicine, that they can do a decrease in the medicine. So it's small baby steps. There's, there's successes, there's failures, there's successes, but we're learning from it. So
Melody dropped in the comment that she had an idea, and I wanted to see what her thought was on that.
Okay, so I have an employee who was highly addicted to pain pills, and heard the doctor that prescribed them got in a lot of trouble. Well, he happened to be next door confiscating some equipment from my neighbor, and they chatted, and he is super interested in hearing more. So she wants us to put together videos, because she used to work for pharmaceutical companies as well. And she had a great idea of putting together a video. I'm just not very good at the verbiage, and then going to the different doctors' offices and presenting just like the pharmaceutical companies do.
I love that idea. Someone put out a video, or somebody sent me it, maybe it was somebody on the collective, of a big pharma-like commercial, but with floating.
Yeah,
I thought it was very cute. There was definitely like some irony there, but it is the sort of thing that, when we talk about side effects, there's the side effects that floating has are so minimal, it's laughable in comparison to all these medications. So I do think there's a lot we have to offer. This is part of the skepticism. This is part of the problem that the Float Research Collective is fighting against, is medical field basically has never heard about something that doesn't come with side effects and still helps you. And when they hear about that, the first thing they say is snake oil. That's basically the most common thing I've heard from every doctor I've spoken to in the past decade. Oh, this must be snake oil. You're telling me it's going to help with all of these conditions? and doesn't have any downside really, they don't believe it. And so I agree to your point, Melody. If we had something, very slick, well created that we could present to doctors around the community, show them that this is legitimate, show them that it's peer-reviewed science, show them that it actually doesn't have side effects, they're going to be much more open to embracing it. I think that's a great idea.
Well, we're going to start working on it soon. I'm getting some video people together, and we just got to get our words and, I don't know, like make it all look profesh, and it's going straight to the doctors.
Cool.
Yeah, that video that you saw, Justin, that was Greg and Chelsea from Weightless in Louisville. And that's actually where the next Float conference is going to be. So that was an amazing a little video. And actually, now that I think about it, you know what would be kind of fun for committee? I know it's an ambitious thing. That's all I do is think about ambitious things. But like, what if we as the FRC created that and we could get Justin on there as the expert doctor to promote this anti-pharmaceutical type commercial? Just be,
hey, I'm
cool.
open to it. I'm open, but just remember, guys, if anything happens to me, you know what happened.
Well, we need to put out as much content as possible for the record so that if something happens to Justin, we
I'm advocating to move to Hawaii to learn everything that he's doing, just in case, and put myself in Hawaii.
That's right, Mandy. We need more redundancy in our system.
I'll take the hit. I'll move.
Can I add something as well? I just for people who do have these ideas, like people who work in video or want to support in any way, get in contact with Justin and get in contact with our group so we can get you in a committee and make sure that this is tracked and is outputted the right way and everything, and gets I guess all the right people working on it.
That's right. We do have a committee called the Education Committee. That's part of the FRC. They'll be meeting probably starting later this year, early next year. And the whole point of the Education Committee is to figure out ways to disseminate the research to the mainstream. And everything from what Melody brought up just now to ways to present this data in social media posts, to ways to explain the research to doctors in a credible way. That's part of the Education Committee's job. So if people are interested in that, just let me know. We're trying to infuse that committee now. We already have a lot of people on the fundraising committee who I'm thinking would be perfect for the Education Committee. So anyways, this is something that we think a lot about at the FRC, which is how to message this, how to really make this resonate. And, to me, that's going to be a neat part of the FRC in the years to come, is we're going to be providing a lot of social media content. We're going to be providing a lot of material that you guys could use to promote float therapy and in a way that's credible to the science.
And to Dylan's point too, like the current committee that the FRC has is made up of industry leaders. We're talking like,
right.
Yeah, Kim Hannon, Dylan himself. We have Andy Chara, and Beth Jones. Am I missing
Mandy and you?
Oh,
Jonathan.
yeah. Of course, Mandy and myself, of course. But that's the point. Like we put together this pack that gets sent out. So anybody who's on this call right now, we have a lot of people here and on Facebook. Go to clinicalfloat.fundraise. That's FUN raise.org and sign up for a fundraising page, and you'll get this pack of content sent to you that can be used to advertise your business and help us push this objective, because that's the point. We're actually, creating this content that has a value for you as your business and to help us. So definitely want to see that, because there's going to be more. Like, Kim has an excellent branding style that she's put into this. And so it's kind of like, here's your opportunity to take something that's being given to you for free in exchange for helping us fundraise, helping the FRC fundraise.
And we'll be infusing that launch pack with more content in the coming months. This is going to be as we talked about earlier, a long-term fundraiser. I have no illusions that in 1 month we're going to be done. This is going to probably be a multi-year fundraiser. And that social media folder will become more and more filled with content that you guys could be using to spread the message about what float therapy is actually doing. And I vet all of that content. We talk about it in a very serious way because we don't want you to be putting out stuff that's false or crap. We want the FRC to stay grounded in science, stay grounded in peer-reviewed data. And so the things that we're saying on that content, I think are all legitimate things to be saying about float therapy. And I do believe when you look at all the data on the short-term reduction of things like anxiety, stress, and pain, I do believe this is the most powerful tool that the human society has available, period, full stop. All the drugs that are out there will reduce anxiety and pain, and they'll have a panoply of side effects, mainly addiction, and you can't come off of them. It's brutal. And to me, the fact that we could reduce anxiety and pain so rapidly and so reliably in so many people, this is a message we have to get out to the community. They don't recognize that. And all of my colleagues in science don't even recognize that. I'm trying to educate those people, and they read the peer-reviewed literature. So we're still this young, nascent community. Even some of us who've been doing this, like myself, for the past decade, we're still young. We're, I would say, at the very beginning of the marathon. We're on like mile 1 or 2 here, and we have many more miles to go. And so keep that in mind. All of you guys are groundbreakers in your own right. You've probably started the first float center your community has ever had. And what we're trying to do is create a ripple effect. I think ultimately, we all know we've stumbled upon a secret. I don't know how all of you have discovered floating. For me, it was very serendipitous how I fell into floating. And, you know, to me, this secret that we've learned about, that floating has sort of taught us and whispered to us, if you will, is something that we now have to really use a megaphone to get out to society. And that's what we're trying to do with the FRC, is we're trying to make a more united megaphone for the clinical benefits of floating. And by joining as a team, you now have become a key part of this sounding board, if you will, because it's going to take all of us together. I really believe this. If it's just me doing this, I don't have a big enough voice. But if all of us came together as a collective and became this megaphone, I think we could reach all corners of the world. I honestly believe it. And everybody who comes to your float center, I think, could be part of that sounding board. The people who are getting benefit from this could be part of that sounding board. So my vision is really more or less a form of outreach right now. I want you guys to shoot for the stars and the fundraisers, but I know it's a tough time, and I don't want you to necessarily be digging into your own coffers. But what I want you to do is really connect with your network. Reach out to all the people on social media. Send messages to your email list. Text people, call people, whatever it takes to get this message out.
And I wanted to mention that too, like email people, text people. Part of what our fundraising committee at the FRC is doing right now is putting out the copy, which is admittingly not something I'm very good at. Some of us are good at creative, some of us are good at copy, but that's what they're doing. Like, so for instance, when you sign up for a team fundraiser, you'll actually receive a packet that contains both visual, but also copy to go along with the visual elements, the creative. And so, like, for instance, if the FRC says, here's a really great idea for an email, you'll just take all that text and you'll put it in an email, and that'll be something great to send out. So like, this is almost like a symbiotic relationship with the community. The FRC is needing to raise money, but we know that in order for you to take the time, your valuable time, to be able to do this for the Float Research Collective, you also should or ought to get something out of it. So this is the opportunity for you to do that. And so sign up for a fundraiser page, because this is some valuable information, valuable content that you can put out on your social media platforms or emails or even text.
Can I add something about message and also trying to reach out to high level donors? I was in an event last week with Michael Savage, who's been a coach under Tony Robbins for over 20 years. And he's also part of an investment group with Tony. And he was talking a bit about how they focus on deep technology, which is like high tech innovation, significant scientific advances. And what they really look for are this technology that is able to influence up to 1 billion people. And that's like the number that they're looking for. And I think we have that. I mean, maybe not 1 billion people float, but I know the people around me benefit from me floating because I'm a better person when I do. So I think reaching 1 billion people with floating is a total possibility. And maybe just like with our messaging, kind of adding that kind of language to help attract that level of donor would be beneficial.
It's a great idea. You know, I just came from the True Rest conference where I was talking about the Float Research Collective. And I was so excited because True Rest just surpassed 1 million floats. And you use that number 1 billion. Why not? I mean, in my eyes, when you have something that has so little downside in terms of side effects, but so much upside in terms of a healthier life, a nervous system that's now functioning at the beat of reality, you don't have as much pain or stress or anxiety on your consciousness anymore. You're able to actually empathize and be compassionate with other human beings. You become a nicer person to be around. These ripple effects of floating, which science hasn't even started to target yet, could be so profound. You know, as a community, I think I remember a float conference back in Portland, Oregon. I think it was Graham and Ashcon giving a talk, and they talked about the power of the exponential law, right? And once floating actually catches on, this could actually be something that is implemented widely across all of society, and including in places in the world that maybe are very poor and don't have much in terms of medical systems. Floating is actually low budget when you actually look at how much medicine really costs in the grand scheme of things. You know, the most expensive surgical procedures, the MRI machines, these things are orders of magnitude more costly than floating. And I think once the medical system embraces this as a real treatment, they will disseminate this very broadly. 1 billion people, why not?
Hey, Justin or anyone else, you know, we've talked on and off, or I've heard on and off for years about the possibility of getting floating in the US as a something that's recognized and reimbursed through insurance or co-paid through insurance. Does anyone have like is there anyone actively working on what are the steps that have to be taken to overcome that hurdle to get it on the list of, I don't know if it's a Medicare list or whatever that list has to be?
This is a big part. We have something called the Medical Approval Committee in the FRC. They're going to be meeting next month. Vivi, I'm trying to recruit to the committee, but we have representatives from every country. We have people in Australia, we have people in the UK, we have people in Canada. We also have people on insurance schemes in America, including Kaiser Permanente, Cigna Healthcare. I'm trying to get someone from Blue Cross Blue Shield. I want to get a VA hospital person on this as well. But the idea of the Medical Approval Committee is really about addressing exactly what you just asked. What are the steps to getting this approved as a treatment that an insurance company could reimburse? How could we get every VA hospital to be paying for this for their veterans? You know, the only proof of principle we have so far is in Australia. Australia's nationalized disability insurance system is now covering flotation therapy. and they will cover up to 20 floats at $100 per float. So just think about that for a second. $100 per float is pretty good. If you guys were getting reimbursed that, it's probably more than the average price you're charging. And it showed me for the first time, you know, in at least modern health, that maybe insurance companies would pay more for something that actually helps their clients. And I don't know the answer. I think Caitlin had a question in the chat earlier, you know, isn't this going to become problematic for float centers if insurance companies start reimbursing? Would they try to undercut you? I think the answer is we don't know yet, but at least with a case like Australia, we could say the answer is no, they'll actually pay you more than you're charging. And
yeah,
that to me is a really important question that you ask. I don't think we have an answer yet, but what I could say is that's the goal of the medical approval committee of the FRC.
So I've got a couple of things about that. One, there used to be, I don't know if they are still there, in Phoenix, a physical therapy group that had a flotation tank, and they were accepting insurance because they were under the, you know, the umbrella of physical therapy. And if the doctor recommended aqua therapy, they got insurance. So I don't know if they're still in business or not, but I know that they're not part of the collective or anything like that. The other thing I just wanted to, you know, give you a heads up on, if nobody knows about this, although I don't know much, but one of the musicians from Korn, with a K, he was able to get off drugs using float, and he has opened up spas with float and cryo and salt therapy and the whole deal, like the whole Megillah, all of it. And there's several throughout the United States. I think there's 3 in Nashville, and there's some in Florida. And he, I mean, you know, we're talking about deep pockets. This is a guy who was personally helped, and he did something about it. So I would think that he would be someone to be contacted. Again, I don't know that he's a member of the Float Collective or that if he goes to conferences.
Could you email me the story or the info about his name? I'd like to try to reach out to him.
I don't even know his name. Does anybody know his name?
Yeah, I've spoken to him. It's been a little while. When I was in, actually, he's got one of his centers in Melbourne, Florida.
Right.
I went over there. We couldn't hook up, but I wanted to go tour his facility, and yeah, I've definitely been in communication with him. He doesn't seem very active on the collective, but thanks for the reminder. I definitely will reach back out to him again and initiate some conversations and see what's up. But yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Is he on the collective officially? Like he's on there? I'm not asking you to drop a name or anything. I'm just curious.
Well, we could find out the name. I don't think he's keeping it a secret, but I would be surprised.
Yeah, no.
There's a Rolling Stone article about it.
Yeah, he's not hiding or anything. I think he's just busy and doing 1,000 things. And
right.
I mean, I was at his shop and I couldn't even go to her.
Brian Welch is the name. It looks
Brian Welch, and they're very high end. I mean, I've had a couple of clients in Tucson who went to the one in Melbourne, and one in Nashville, and they're very high end, but they don't have a lot of knowledge. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's like they're not involved. But also, you know, I mean, as far as like fundraising, I'm thinking Zac Efron. I mean, like there's all these performers, but also producers, and producers are going to have maybe deeper pockets than actors and actors, although God knows they do. But to be able to contact these higher profile people who have had tremendous experiences from their float tank, and they want, you know, from the float experience, and some of them own, I mean, Tom Brady, for God's sakes, you know, I mean, like people, Mark, don't you know him? Or no, that's somebody else.
I was speaking of him earlier. I don't know him personally, but I know people that float with me that share an office with him in his supplement company, TB12. So, yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think also comedians. I got some friends in the comedy scene that, you know, obviously a lot of people started because of Joe Rogan, but you know, you talk about Duncan Trussell, some of these people that go deep into their understanding, and other people that I've been introduced to from Joe Rogan that I still follow. But yeah, I'm excited about everyone kind of getting excited about talking to their people, and we all have a place to drive people to now, which is exciting. And have that moonshot, Justin, that you're setting out there, and that number that, I think with the right amount of people, we can do this.
And the right people, I mean, well, I used to be in corporate sales, and you always go through the whale, you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, it's really nice to have people round up their float 3 cents, but it might be more powerful to have it. I mean, that's great, on a collective thing, and that money, does go up and does go up, but I think that that's maybe not as powerful as having somebody dump a bunch of money into research, because it's something that truly helped them, that they can afford to do and take off as a tax deduction. I mean, heaven's sakes, Ryan Reynolds just bought a soccer team for, I mean, like, these
they're
people
looking
spend
for
money.
places to spend. Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion. I had not heard the story about the corn guitarist. So that, to me, the fact that he's living proof of the benefits of float therapy, he's a great person to reach out to. And these are the sorts of ideas that I really love for you guys to communicate to me. I'm not thinking about these things, but you guys are. I think the creativity of this whole community is incredible. So if there's creative ways that you guys could think of spreading this message, trying to get some of these bigger whales on board, let's do it. I'm 100% on board with that.
One more other thought about logistics. If we do get someone who's willing to donate a large amount, it's always nice to put out a request that it's a matching gift. I'm more likely to donate when there's a match, because I feel like that $1 can actually bring in $2 for the organization. So if we have someone, that's something to think about, and let us know.
That's a great point. I hadn't even thought of that, but matching is a top sort of seller in fundraising worlds. And if you get somebody who wants to donate a lot of money, we could create a match in their honor. If they want to, we could do it anonymously too, and really try to splash that message out to everybody's team. We could do that for, we have 50 teams now. I'm trying to get to 100 teams by the end of October. So imagine we have 100 teams now that could get an email blast and a social media blast saying, we will now match up to X amount of money. I think that would be really fun.
And I bet you, after today's call, I guarantee we have additional fundraisers, because I see them on here and on this call. So thank you for actually setting up your fundraising page. I just thinking about this whole conversation we've just had, even if, the fact that we're actually talking about some of these influencers, these wealthy people, it's going to inherently help our industry anyway, because you guys see it, like, once somebody that's famous or knows a lot, has a great social media reach, does anything related to floating, or a film or a TV show, it, like, our door gets kicked down, because people want to come and float because they heard that their favorite comedian is now floating. So again, the symbiosis of this entire operation, the symbiosis of this mission is tenfold, and it's going to help your business. It's going to help our industry. And to go back to what Kaylin was saying, like, even if, and I've heard this argument before, like, well, what if insurance does cover it? What if my hospital goes and builds a float tank? I wouldn't worry about it, because seriously, we're here right now. We've already mastered this. They're going to be asking you as a consultant how to do this. You already know, and you're going to be the ultimate leader in providing this service. So by that time, you will be the hospital. Think about it. We all could be the facility that becomes part of the big healthcare provider. Not to say that you'd want to be bought out by them, but you could operate in their healthcare network, So like, we are building these facilities, and they will become the standard in the future. And I think that insurance is just another thing, like, it's another form of payment, but our centers are optimized and already set up for an ideal float situation or therapeutic service.
So I just want to differentiate some, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I just want to, first of all, I just want to say the words pickleball, because everyone and their mother, I never played it, but I heard it so much this summer. It became like this coin word for everyone who was like 55 and up. So pickleball is the coin word for floating. But as far as insurance, there's medical, there's the disability, workman's comp, and there's also motor vehicle. Medical, I don't like. And if I sit on a committee, I'm not going to be very nice to Cigna and Blue Cross.
That's why I want you on the committee.
Okay, because they will take you and spit you out. I'm telling you that's their MO. I don't know what Australia does, but motor vehicle and workman's comp are a different issue. Motor vehicle will, if they see that X, Y, and Z will work for you, there are some that will give money back at a settlement, or will have someone prepay. And then if they're working with an attorney, unfortunately, I had to deal with this garbage upstairs. They will give money towards it. So it's a very fishy issue. The insurances are not one and the same. They work differently. There's different stipulations on each. And then back to the medical world, just what I've seen, and I read how one buys the other and they become superpowers and whatnot. It is buyer beware, because I mean, I'd like to see how Australia, or talk to someone, what kind of insurance it is that we're talking about. Is it, when you say disability, is it like, is your workman's comp situation, or is it built into their nationalized program where, so yeah, it's different.
It's all nationalized there, which is different than us.
Right. So there's a lot of layers, but pickleball is the word for the mainstream.
That's right. I like that. I think LeBron James just bought a pickleball team or something.
Mike, I guess my biggest concern is, and there's no way of answering this question, is, because I've just been in this industry for so long that we haven't had insurance yet. I mean, I work out of my home center. People work out of their basement. People work out of their extra house. They're not all commercial centers, and some people were plumbers before they were flotation tank center owners. And nobody's certified. There is no certification, but that's how it used to be for acupuncturists and chiropractors too. And now they're very, very regulated, which they should be, because they are more medical. I mean, they are, they're touching the body and, stuff like that. But I just wonder if if we're going down a road where we could be out of business by supporting, something like getting insurance, because we might have to have medical staff overseeing our center. We would have to pay that medical staff to do that. And so these are just things I've thought about. I think that ultimately, if we're all egalitarian and we all want to see floating go beyond us, that we're on board with this. But I think it's something that we should also consider. It's like, would we be willing to get out of the business if we had to, in order to make it prosper further?
It's a very interesting point you bring up. I hadn't heard it articulated quite that way before, and it's powerful what you're saying, because you've seen this before in other industries. You've seen this before when medical industry swoops in and tries to claim it as their own.
Mm-hmm.
The way I view floating is different than the typical medicalized version of it. I view it as a preventative tool, honestly. When we do our studies that we look at how long do the effects of floating last, there's this 2 to 3 day residue from a float session that carries out into the real world. And it's, to me, that's really incredible. Why would that happen? I don't get that after, taking a shower or a bath or other interventions. You don't have this 2 to 3 day residue afterwards. Why is floating doing that? And to me, when you think about that ripple effect of somebody coming out in a healthier state of mind, a healthier state of body, and now going into the world, why wouldn't that be accessible to everybody? Why aren't we putting our children and teenagers into float pools who are way overstimulated? This generation, way more so than anybody else. Why, when their nervous system is at the peak of development, isn't every adolescent floating once a week? Why aren't we doing this for every person who's in our military and armed forces? Why wait till they get PTSD? They should just be doing it. Why are work places and corporations waiting for all of their employees to burn out or quit their job instead of just offering this to them on a regular basis? The point I'm trying to make here is, yes, floating is a medical treatment for those who already are in the grips of suffering with pain and stress and anxiety, but it's also a life practice, that a preventative life practice that should be implemented in everyone's life, regardless of whether they suffer from these conditions. And in that way, when this disseminates, yes, it will have a dissemination through the medical system, but it's going to disseminate on every city block. It's going to disseminate in every town around the world. And so, I don't necessarily view this as a form of competition yet. I view this as we're at the beginning stages now, and we have 100 years to go before that vision I just articulated comes true. And once that's happening, every city block, every corner, you're going to see a float tank, because people are going to be doing it on a regular basis. It's just part of their life in the modern world.
Without a doubt. Any other questions? I want to see if we can get any other questions out there. There's been a very dynamic chat in the Zoom call, by the way, which is kind of cool, but we won't reiterate that if you guys have a chance.
Maybe we should do this again, Jonathan. We should have more of these.
Absolutely.
That was going to be my question, is there going to be a rhythmic update on where are we at with the total fundraiser? Let's do a status check, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be good. I mean, the actual fundraiser goal is now on everyone's fundraiser page. So you could see where we're at. On the main page, it shows the $10 million goal. And then on your page, it will show your individual goal. And so that updates in real time. You'll see where we're at. But I like the idea, you guys are filled with great ideas. You don't necessarily have to join the Float Research Collective per se as a committee member, which is a bigger responsibility, but maybe a few times a year we could all get together and have these sorts of dynamic conversations, because ultimately, I want this Float Research Collective to be part and parcel of the float community. That's why I created this, is I feel like we have an opportunity to actually do things at a much bigger level. And one of the things we haven't even chatted about today is collecting data at float centers. This is a big part of the FRC. That the first thing I think we could accomplish as a nonprofit is we could create a cloud-based system that goes out to all of you. And if you had a tablet or an iPad at your float center, you could be collecting data that goes into a centralized database. And it could be data that, importantly, could be published upon in a scientific journal. So we're working on that. And to me, if we could actually just get to that lower goal of 1 million, we could very rapidly, within a year or so, have data collection going on at float centers everywhere. And that's exciting. I mean, from a researcher's standpoint, I know it sounds nerdy, but the studies we've done so far have been in small samples. And we can now have sample sizes orders of magnitude bigger if we had everybody collecting data in their center.
Hey,
Absolutely.
Justin,
Go ahead.
Sorry, buddy. This may be too far in advance, but the cloud-based system really excites me as well in terms of getting population data, such a large population around the world. Is the intent of that, do you know, would the float centers that participate in that research, would they also be able to have access not just to the publishable data, but like the question you answered earlier, why do your members float? I would love to know that from all the float centers in the country or whoever participates.
So, this is a TBD because we're still setting it up, but the way I'm trying to get it set up is so that all the data is de-identified. What that means is there's no information contained in the data set that could ever harm a person, break HIPAA laws, reveal their identity. And if we could do it in that way, this is a database that could actually be publicly available to everybody. Maybe there's a researcher at a university that only cares about one specific condition, so they could mine the data for that. Maybe, you know, Float Tank Solutions wants to put out a really clear, you know, ad about what is floating actually helping with. They could mine the data for that. And to me, I even had a conversation with Roy Vore. Once we have this cloud-based system up and running, there's no reason why we couldn't be inserting health-related data, say water sanitation quality, into the cloud-based system that could then be easily mined for people who care about that issue. So, you know, once we have this up and running, and Brad Dock, who is volunteering all of his time right now to help me create this cloud-based system in the perfect platform. That's what we're working on now, is finding the right platform to do this. You know, this is going to be the gift that keeps giving. I really believe it, because once we have it up and running, once we have a bunch of float centers who are connected into it, it's going to be so easy to implement new things once we have it up and running.
Cool.
And this is the microbiology project is actually what you were just mentioning with Roy Vore, and that is a flotation tanks or a float tank association initiative started by Roy. And this is, I wanted to make a point because a lot of people probably are watching this and saying, well, John, you're with the Flotation Tank Association, but you're also with the Float Research Collective. But the FTA and the FRC have this very intimate relationship because, as you all may remember back at the previous conference, we helped raise money for the startup costs, which we were able to match and get Justin lifted and starting this initiative.
That's right. That, you know, the legal fees to get 501c3 approval were paid for by the FTA. So from the very get-go, we've been very close. The FTA has helped lift us up. And I think the FTA is such an important part of the float industry. People sometimes don't recognize how much they do behind the scenes, whether it is about water sanitation or marketing, etc. There's so much they're doing behind the scenes. And the way we're viewing the FRC and the FTA is we're going to be sharing information because we're interrelated in many ways. People like Jonathan and Mandy, they're part of both. And we're going to have a lot of synergy, I think, in the years to come.
Without a doubt. Absolutely. Does anyone else have any other questions for Justin about the FRC or questions in general?
Yeah, I've got a quick question. Since you've gone through the whole process with a 501c3, how is it working with other nonprofits? I've been working with a lot of veteran organizations, and I've actually been asked to be a VP on one of them, and I want to just kind of see what that looks like. Kind of new to that whole aspect, but yeah, just anything on that.
You know, we're trying to start forming partnerships with other nonprofits. I think last year's Float Conference 2021, I spoke about MAPS. I think MAPS, there could be a lot of synergy. They're trying to get psychedelic medicine approved as a treatment. That's kind of their main goal. And they're about a year or two away from having their first big breakthrough on that front. But it took them 35 years, just to give you a sense of how long it's been and what a battle it's been. I'm hoping it doesn't take us that long. I'm actually thinking more 5 to 10 years, we could really make some big dents. But the point being, I think it is important to partner with other nonprofits. It's a messy world because our entire lifeblood is based off of other people's support and fundraising. It's a philanthropic world, and if you're not being well fundraised, I've seen a lot of nonprofits go out of business and sort of just stop functioning. And so to me, what I'm trying to do with this campaign, whether it's the 1 million all the way up to the 10 million, is make this sustainable long term. I see this having legs that could go decades into the future. And so that's really what this launch is about. It's kicking us off with our best foot forward and trying to launch this idea into the future, because it's going to take a long time to achieve the goals that we're setting to achieve. But I think we could do it. I wouldn't be here otherwise, you guys. Trust me. I don't, anyone who knows me, I don't get involved with things that I don't fully believe in. And to me, I became a believer over time. The data is what convinced me. The patients that I've been working with are who convinced me. But now that I'm convinced, I'm in this fully. And that's why I started the Float Research Collective.
Excellent. By the way, I spotted Greg. He's here.
No way.
I'm
Did
sorry.
anyone snap a picture of that?
I did, but I didn't have a chance to post it in the chat. No, I just want to thank everybody who joined us today, September 29th, for the post-launch of the Float Research Collective. I'm not going to say anything, Justin, but there is some super exciting news that's coming up. I cannot wait. We cannot wait to share it with the whole world or the whole float world, because it's going to be just amazing. So keep an eye on that. Also, if you guys aren't a member of the Float Tank Association, seriously, please support us. Supporting us is like helping the entire industry, in the same way that supporting the Float Research Collective is helping the entire industry. We're a symbiotic group, just as Justin had mentioned, and I would say the Float Conference is the same way. We're like the three big trifectas right now of the industry, and we all work together in this symbiotic way to kind of bring the industry to the highest point it can possibly be. So if you guys are interested in joining the FTA, just go to floatation.org, and don't forget, you know, I'm really like legit like refreshing the fundraiser page, Justin, because I'm waiting for people to start their fundraisers from this call. If you guys haven't done it, please, it takes less than 5 minutes. Go create a fundraiser page. You know, like I said, like Justin had mentioned, there is no obligation to hit your fundraising goal, even if you put $1 billion. Like, it's totally fine. We would just be like, wow, you're very ambitious, but you're going to get free content to market your float center with, and also help us in the same return. So do that at clinicalfloat.fundraise.org. And check out our YouTube channel too, which has actually been kind of slowly growing. We love a subscription, because that's important to us. And we have some content that dropped. Don't forget to see Justin's. This is the first presentation from this last Float conference that got released. Thank you, Jocelyn. And that's up on YouTube. You can also find it on a collective. You can see it in the chat. But yeah,
thank you, Jocelyn. That was great. I was so happy we could get out my presentation right away. Normally there's like a bit of a delay, but the presentation from last month is already out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Justin. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank everybody for joining us, and let's do this again soon. I look forward to it.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Bye now.